Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids podcast. Uh, Look, I still don't have a flow to this, but make sure you check out homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com for our lovely schedule of expos this year. We have 14 on the books, one down, 13 more to go. So be sure to check out if we're coming to a city near you. And big shout out to Classical Conversations, one of our proud sponsors. Please check out their curriculum and their support because they're pretty awesome. Today we have with us Mary. Mary, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Mary McFarlin, and I live in the Seattle, Washington area. And I'm a dyslexia specialist and the mother to one grown child who I homeschooled when she was in middle school.
Oh, nice. Why middle school?
Well, we live on an island actually, so we have a very we have to access our island by boat. So there's really only one school choice for our families if they are attending a brick and mortar school. But we have a really nice homeschool program through the school district. And
Okay.
she had some special learning needs, so we decided that that was the best fit for her at the time. And it's not a decision that we regret at all. So
Nice.
there were lots of supports and classes she could take and that sort of thing, even though this was, she's 27 now. So this was a while ago. This was like 15 years ago. So,
But that's cool. The school
um,
supported it. So they encouraged you all to homeschool.
sure. Yeah. They have a program right through our school district, which gives options for families. So it's great.
And
Yeah.
did they like provide materials? Did they provide curriculum? Like how did that?
It's probably different nowadays, but they provided a stipend towards materials, like you
Oh,
pay
okay.
a little bit of money to use. But they did have teachers that oversaw your students. So we would meet once a week and go over what we're working on, develop plans, just check in. And definitely parent led, but it was the support was nice for families
Mm.
as well to keep you held accountable, make sure you're following your goals and trying to meet your goals. Yeah, it was great. It's
Well,
still
it's
a very
nice that it
popular
was.
program. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice that it was a partnership with the school. Like that's pretty cool. How
Yeah.
did she like it?
She liked it. We had actually just moved back to the island, so she actually was able to meet some friends through it, and certain things counted. In the community, she did some arts program and swimming, and those types of things all counted as educational. And yeah, it worked out great. My dad's actually a mathematician, so he was her math teacher. So it
Oh
worked.
wow.
At the time, I was an educational therapist, and I was able to support her with her special learning needs as well. And it worked out really well.
Nice. And you say you are a dyslexic specialist.
Yeah, so I'm through the IDA CERI program. It's the Center for Effective Reading Instruction. I am a certified dyslexia specialist. So structured literacy dyslexia specialist is the official title. Yes.
Okay, structure. How did you get there? What made you go into that field?
So backtrack almost 20 years, and my daughter was in second grade, and her school, not where we live now, it was a different school district. We were told she wasn't going to write. So a lot, they're like, we're not going to teach her handwriting. We're going to go straight to assistive technology, which back then was not even what it is now. And that just struck us as off,
Mm.
why are we not teaching our daughter to write? And at the time, I was actually in the human services field and more the mental health field as a counselor. And I knew that was not going to fit for her. So we did some research and found a school that offered some one-on-one support. And I just fell in love with it. I saw how much it helped her. It involves structured literacy. It was an educational therapy program. And so I basically went back to school and changed fields. And the rest is history. When I moved to the island, I started my private practice, and eventually I gave up uh, my educational therapy licensure to switch to dyslexia specialty. So I kind of focused on the reading and the literacy side of it, but it's all
Okay.
interrelated. So So that is the certification that I continue to maintain now.
Okay. So did you do this in the classroom, or were you like
I
support outside of the classroom?
Well, I have a private practice, but I've also contracted with independent schools. So I do one-on-one and small groups. So,
Okay.
like for instance, right now I'm contracting with a online school because that's really popular now, and
Yeah.
which is great. I love it that that there's independent schools, public schools, we're all trying to support our kids, and that's really great. That's one of the benefits is we're all being savvier about online instruction now, and it can actually be extremely effective when done well. So
Indeed. And so you say your daughter was told, well, they told you your daughter would not write. Why?
right. So she has some complex needs, kind of more of a brain injury,
Okay.
and so for her it was just like a medical diagnosis. Like
Okay.
it was a public school, they're like, we're just we're classifying her as this. We're gonna just give her the supports, but the bar was set really, really low, and
Mm,
and thankfully, we to switch schools and got her the supports she needed, and she was given accommodations all the way through college. I mean,
uh,
she definitely was able to succeed with the right accommodations and the right support, so she's doing great.
nice. But it wasn't dyslexic,
No, she
dyslexia
doesn't have
related.
dyslexia.
Okay.
No, but as is becoming more well known now, structured literacy is for all learners, so it helps
Mhm.
everyone. So that's what's so exciting about structured literacy. It's the vast majority of students, they actually need explicit instruction in literacy. It doesn't just automatically learn it. It's not how our brains are wired. So
Yeah.
I definitely it was useful for my own child, in
Mhm.
particular for the students that I worked with every day. So
Gotcha. How is the literacy rate there in Washington?
I mean, I'd say the whole it's if you look it up, well, I just looked it up. I should know the actual quote because as of course everyone's talking right now about the literacy scores, aren't they?
Mhm.
And it's it's not like bottom of the barrel, but it's certainly not making the changes that a lot of the states are. So, the overall score is still, 30% of our fourth graders, 30% of our eighth graders are reading at at proficiency levels. So it's
Mm.
pretty, it's not great. So,
Yeah, right. I know. And it's a national thing. I was just,
yes.
asking about Washington.
Yeah.
Um, so what does the structured literature, what does that look like? Or
So,
the yeah.
yeah, so structured literacy is, the program that a lot of people heard of. Is not a program, it's actually an approach, is the Orton Gillingham approach. And really it's teaching students early on the associations between the phonemes and the graphics, which would be mapping the letters and the letter patterns to the sounds and explicitly teaching that. And the same would go with the decoding, which is the reading, and the encoding, which is the spelling. And it's starting at the phoneme level and then moving forward. And of course, the level that I work with is mostly fourth graders, and we are focusing really strongly on the morphological layer of our language, which are the meaning units of language. So that's become it's a component of structural literacy, and it does start in younger years. Students right away need to be aware that we add suffixes onto words, that prefixes and suffixes carry meaning. The level I work with, though, is at a higher vocabulary level, and it is that fourth grade and onward, where our words are multisyllabic, and a lot of students, they struggle. They can read pretty well. They've learned the phonics. They've got a pretty solid grasp on that. But a lot of students, they come to the multisyllabic level and they're trying to sound out the words by sounds, and it doesn't work that way. We really read by these meaning units called morphemes within words. So that's the area that I fell in love with, because I saw the power of it, and that is but when I launched my other business, I still see students. I still see students, but now we have these products that we've made available that focus on the morphological layer of our language, and it's been really exciting. So that's what my whole website is about, and some of the and all of the materials that we've created.
So you have more like tools and resources that families can access.
Yes, it would be part of an English language arts curriculum, and it would be focusing on morphological awareness, which helps reading, spelling, and vocabulary. And there's a lot of research supporting it for all learners, particularly those who struggle. But that's the neat thing, is it's helpful for all students. And at least where we live, our schools don't incorporate a lot of that. So when students encounter this approach of looking at our structure of our language, they're blown away. They're like, oh, so this explains English, right? It's pretty exciting to see these kids discover how our language actually works. It's pretty cool.
Right, the breakdown of it, because a lot of the words, like you say, you can't attack them phonetically because it won't make sense.
Exactly. And as you know, like suffixes and prefixes, the pronunciation shifts, but the spelling never shifts. So the most impactful result we see right away with students when we study morphology is spelling. It's like it unlocks a whole, it's like a puzzle. Oh, these are just pieces that work together. The only reason words get long, the only reason we have 7 and 8 syllable words is because there could be 3 prefixes, there could be 3 or 4 suffixes, but there's usually just that one base element. And that is very helpful to discover. And there's a handful, like there's like 14 bases, also called roots, that are used in literally over 100,000 words. So those are the, we can't learn every base in English. Of course we can't, but there are a certain number of common ones that are extremely useful for students to learn from a spelling, reading, and vocabulary, meaning perspective.
Nice. So basically, like, it's more learning about the prefixes and the suffixes and being able to say, okay, this is this, and then putting them all together to make the word, or the long word.
Exactly. And we do include the common base elements, also known as roots. And we've divided we've layered it into, so what we teach there, that from our Latin level of our language, which is about 60% of words after 3rd grade, right, have Latin elements. Eventually we might do a Greek one. Kids love learning Greek. Greek is more, it's more content specific. It's very scientific, as you probably know. So we might do something like that later on. Right now we're working on, we have one more set to go. There's about 55 morphemes that we explicitly teach in our materials. And those would be the Latin elements. So yes, it's the common affixes. We call these the high utility ones. And because they're high utility, because they're not content specific, they're not domain specific. These are tier 2 vocabulary that we use across all subjects, that kids encounter. So it's very, very useful for whatever subject students end up pursuing. And we've made it into lessons that follow a specific routine, because routines are really good. And then we have accompanying activities, a whole variety of activities that the kids can do to practice and review and apply their morphological awareness. It's not just like, oh, pre means before. It's not about just learning the meaning, the sense of the meaning. It's really using them. Let's look at word families. Let's look at some spelling activities, some sorts, and we have some word chains. Kids really like word chains where you just change the morpheme. So instead of, you change the prefix, and then you change the suffix, and just a big variety to keep them engaged so they're not bored. And yeah, it's kind of a unique in that you could use it in a classroom, you could use it with your homeschooled student, you could have the student do the activities by themselves, you could do them interactively with the student. There's just a lot of ways to do it, and we do have some demo videos showing how I use it with my students, and
Okay.
we're trying to make it really clear and easy to go, easy to grasp. Like, oh, as long as you know the concept of a prefix and a suffix, and that words have etymology and the word origin, as long as we have a basic understanding of that, this is something that even a teacher or a parent without a lot of prior experience or background knowledge could do with their students.
And that's what I was going to ask, how parent friendly is this, with a, like you said, not with a background in education or anything like that.
Right. No, that's a really, really good question. And what we do is there's not a lot of training out there. We put a couple of free training resources right up on our website. And that is something that we're working on, is we want to have more of a specific training, but we're very responsive to answering questions. And we do recommend following our progression, because there is embedded review, and we start off right away with practicing the suffix conventions, where you drop the final E when you add a vowel suffix, the Y to I convention. We start reviewing those right away, to prepare the student for the, when we do need to add the suffixes, this is what we do. So it is designed, there's a teacher answer key, and then the digital slides have the instructions below, and the PDF, they have the instructions available alongside of them, so that the parent or instructor can work through the materials. The core lesson is meant to be teacher or parent led, and then the activities could be done independently, kind of like a workbook. We don't have any workbooks for sale yet because we haven't found an affordable option. So what I do is I just print mine out and put them in binders as a workbook. So if the parent wants to use them like that, otherwise everything's PowerPoint slide. So a student could be doing these on a tablet or on a laptop, just kind of working through that way. So it's which was really important. We didn't see a lot of digital options out there, so that was really important that we had that option for those people that want that.
Nice. And this is for fourth grade, because I know you say you work with fourth graders. Is it all this material is still for fourth graders?
It's fourth grade and up. I'm about to
Okay.
start using it with a third grader. With a third grader, you would need to have a fairly robust vocabulary, because we're involving a lot of word families, which are, all the related words that are derived, from the same word. And that vocabulary level gets pretty high. So that's why we recommend fourth grade and up. You could use it with a third grader that, maybe they're kind of bored, like they're done with phonics, they're like really ready for a challenge. You could certainly do that. And I'm actually going to start working with a third grader, but I personally have only used it fourth grade and up.
Fourth grade.
It's really, really ideal for middle school. It's
Okay.
I've talked to some, we just returned from a conference that was for independent schools in the South. And, people really are saying, yes, this would complement our middle school, the ELA program really, really well. So, really it's depends on the student. I use it mostly with, most of my students this year are fourth through sixth grade.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only students I use it with are students that really have some really complex learning challenges that go beyond just, maybe some dyslexia or, reading challenges. Again, it's that vocabulary level, but students, don't need to do every single activity. There are different levels of challenge. So it's very, what I do with my students is I'll read the words for them. If the word is too challenging, let's do it together. So I do a lot of scaffolding is what I do. But
yeah, and that's what I was.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, but my students, most of them have a learning a language learning difference. So for me, you know, if you're working with a student that's kind of just a typical learner, you know, you're not going to be offering that kind of scaffolding that I offer with my students.
Gotcha. And that's what I was gonna like, that's what I was thinking. Is it something like, because you said it's larger vocabulary needed. So an individual that's not real proficient in reading, this wouldn't benefit them maybe?
Well, I use it every day with kids with dyslexia, like
Okay.
literally every day. I tend to have up to 16 students at a time. So I use it, and again, it's about that scaffolding.
Okay.
Because but what's so neat, and again, with those students, I would definitely recommend starting following our progression and not mixing up the progression. It's pretty amazing. So what we do is we break the words. Every core lesson, together with the teacher or the parent, has a portion where they're breaking apart the words, right? We're analyzing the words, and then we're also putting the words back together. So we're synthesizing the words. So a lot of people refer to those as word sums, right? And when students see it that way, and those word chains where they're only making one change, it's very empowering, and really, really right away they become very, very confident. So
Nice.
it's but that said, you would want your student to have completed what would typically be considered through a 3rd grade phonics sequence. What you'll find is once they get to this Latin layer, once they've learned it, it's actually easier, because most of the elements are open syllables, closed syllables, some final E syllables, and that's it. We don't have a lot of different vowel teams to choose from in Latin. There aren't double O letter patterns. So if you hear an U sound, it's going to be the letter U, right? There aren't K in Latin. There isn't the letter K in Latin elements. So if you hear the sound K, you're going to go with a C. So once students kind of learn this, it's like, oh, this is actually easier, because there aren't all those vowel teams that they have to choose from, like, oh, there's so many ways to spell the E sound, or there's so many ways to spell the A sound. It's much more straightforward. So it actually is very empowering, even though the words are getting longer. So it's kind of neat to see students who discover that if they haven't learned this way before. So
Nice. And it sounds like it helps more with comprehension, because you know a lot of students or a lot of young learners in general can read per se, like they have learned the words, have mastered the words, but their understanding of the words altogether, like reading a page and then they can't really recap anything. But it sounds like this would help with comprehension.
yeah, I mean, it definitely, one of the comments I've had from parents before, once their students have learned this, is, oh, my students' vocabulary has improved.
Mm.
So yeah, so the idea here is that they're able to increase that vocabulary, and there is, like, on our website we have linked some research articles to that, like how does morphological awareness improve vocabulary, because as you say, the ultimate goal is comprehension, right? And what I find with a lot of readers, and it's a habit that they develop, is they're reading these longer words, but they're actually not reading them accurately. Like I don't know if you've noticed it, but like they'll drop a suffix, or they'll switch the prefix. Instead of reading it as per, they'll read it as pre, and they're reading it inaccurately enough where it's negatively impacting their comprehension. Accuracy is important. Like, and I tell my students that, I'll warn them, oh, I'm gonna be a little annoying here. I'm gonna have you reread the words that you aren't reading, because it's a habit. They want to read fast. They think fast is best, right? So that can be a problem. And I do think, like, one of the intentional aspects that we kept within our materials is every activity set has some sort of connected text, either sentences or paragraphs, because that's how we read, right? We don't just read words in isolation. We need to be reading the connected text. And then the other piece that's really important is syntax, because using suffixes affects how we use the words in the sentences. So the grammar and the parts of speech and the syntax is greatly affected by morphemes. So that's another really helpful activity for students is to think about how the suffixes change that part of speech and how that part of speech changes how we use it in a sentence, the function of the word. So that, again, that all helps with the ultimately vocabulary syntax, it all helps with the students' comprehension. So
nice. And this is linguistics 101. Like this is I feel like this is like the basis of linguistics, which is a college course. So
yeah. And then what we're trying to do is make it simplified. Because like I know like last week at the training, someone said, yeah, one of the morphology items out there that's popular right now, you only can access it if you take this super expensive class, which is great. The classes are great, don't get me wrong. But we're trying to make it where a parent or teacher without that background can still, because we don't have time to wait, right? Our kids that are in 4th grade, soon they'll be in middle school, then they'll be in high school. We don't have time to wait for everyone to take, you know, for districts and, you know, to be supplying these trainings. We need to do this now. And it is very, you know, so, and the feedback we've had is really positive that yes, this is easy to use. Cause like you said, it does sound really overwhelming, maybe, you know, like, oh, wow, this is linguistics, but these are, you know, these are familiar word parts. We're just breaking it up into the system for the student and the instructor or the parent as well, if that makes sense.
No, so, it does. I don't think it's necessarily complex, but I do think that it's necessary as far as comprehension. Like I just feel like it really assists with comprehending what you are reading.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, because it's all I mean, that's the end goal, right? Is comprehension, you know, and you know, most of the studies that I have on the site are more you know, looking specifically at, you know, spelling, how it impacts spelling, how it impacts written expression. That's probably the biggest impact. But certainly there's a lot of research behind, you know, boosting you know, the spelling, the reading, and the vocabulary, which ultimately, you know, would impact our comprehension.
Okay. Do the first 3 years, do they, like, you know, because you said at least 3rd grade needs to be, you need to at least have made it to 3rd grade. Does that prepare them for this? Like as far as understanding all of those? Like,
Yeah,
or is this, are these new to
right.
them once they reach your program?
Well, hopefully, well, it's interesting that you asked that, because like I remember, you know, a year or so ago, I was listening to a lot of spelling podcasts out there, and a lot of them would not mention morphology. And for me to think about spelling without morphology, my brain won't even do that, right? But I'm noticing a trend, and I think a lot of the phonics programs out there, they're starting to more explicitly incorporate suffixes and prefixes, and you know how they affect parts of speech. But these students, if they've had a solid phonics program, even with a minimal emphasis on morphology, they definitely are ready for this, because they are able to, they know all their grapheme, phoneme, all their letter sound correspondences. If they know that, you know, they're ready, certainly. You know, there might need to be a little more background on, okay, a prefix is an element, it carries meaning, it's not a word, it goes before the base. Like there's definitely going to need to be a little bit of instruction like that. But most phonics programs that I'm aware of, they've certainly taught ing, ed, right? They've taught the common suffixes, and hopefully they've also taught the conventions that go along with that, on, you know, when we drop that final e or double the final consonant. So I would say yeah, any phonics program out there, if a student has completed, and it doesn't mean they're the strongest reader or speller in the world, but they've got, you know, they've had that instruction, they certainly would be ready for this. And and in particular, maybe you don't see this, but I see this a lot, especially since the COVID lockdowns. I don't know, haven't studied it specifically, but a lot of my upper elementary kids, their spelling is really, really, really challenged. Like and I don't know if that has something to do with how old they were back when the schools were closed. I don't know. But, you know, and of course, homeschool students, I mean, if they were homeschooled back then, they wouldn't have been as affected as much. But I'm noticing a real trend in the students who are, you know, they just really can't spell. And that certainly would be even more of a reason to learn this way, because it's like a
Indeed.
breath of fresh air for these kids, because longer words are no longer intimidating. And the suffixes that can be challenging, like ION and OUS and, you know, AL, those suffixes, we also incorporate pronunciation pieces on those, because as you know, TIAL is pronounced shul, right? SION is pronounced shun or zhun. So when we see the suffixes within a syllable like that, we also want to practice that pronunciation. So when a student hears a word ending in shun or zhun, they're going to know, oh yeah, that's SION. Or they hear Asian. Oh yeah, that's ATION. And you'll notice I refer to suffixes by their spellings. That's intentional, because they don't look like they're not spelled like they don't sound like they look, right? Yeah. So it's all these kind of repeated layering of these concepts. Suffixes are the trickiest part. But once you learn it, they're stable. Suffix spellings are stable. Prefix spellings are stable. Some of our bases do have more than one form, but if it's a common one, we'll learn it. You know, so it's really a system and a structure, and it's like almost like a puzzle. And the neatest part, one of the neatest parts, I think, is the students enjoy it. They enjoy studying morphology. They find it kind of interesting and kind of fun. So
Nice. So what's your take? Because I feel like the public school system kind of bounced back and forth with the phonetics or the sight word practices, like actually teaching phonetics versus teaching sight words. Of course, with you and your program, that's not, I don't think sight words would match up, like, you know, with just
not at the level of Latin. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So earlier on, you know, the language, like as many experts would say, you know, any word is a sight word once it's become orthographically mapped in your brain. And so what's happening is if a young student who's only learning their short vowels, right, their CBC words, right, and they're going to want that student to learn to spell words like the, right, like that's not following us, you know. So I refer to them as more the high frequency words. And I still feel like we need to orthographically map those, because that's how our brain recognizes words. It's actually mapping the sound to the print. And most of us aren't even conscious of it. So I do, when my students are young, I don't tend to work with younger students, but I do have a few third graders this year. When I started with them, you know, we do the, you've probably seen the Elkanon boxes, or you draw a dot for each sound. We do want to do that even with those high frequency words. We still want to do the sounds. But what I do is right away, if you have a third grader reading you know, a CBC word like in, right? They could also read the word impact. It's 2 syllables of CBC. So what I would do with a word like that, if my student had the word impact, I would circle the IM. So right away they realize, oh, that's a prefix. And I'm not getting deep into it at that point. I might tell them, oh, that means in. It's a form of in. I might just, you know, pre-teach the meanings. So with sight words, I just call it high frequency words, because we're still going to map them. They just might be introduced before that pattern has been taught. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but I don't, you know, because that's not how our brain learns to read. I don't, you know, to me, a sight word is just one that you recognize on sight. Like you can read.
Gotcha.
Like,
okay.
and most of my students, they don't have any problem with the, I mean, it's like they've seen it enough. We'll practice spelling it and we're good, you know? So yeah.
Nice. And so because you are doing this, your classes are virtual, and you say you have about 15?
I do both. I see students in person after school in my local area, and then I see students online. Yeah.
Okay. What is your online?
Pardon?
No, I was going to ask, what does your online program look like? Is that for locals also, or that's for everyone?
It's for everyone.
Okay.
I am contracting with a school right now, so I have students on the East Coast. I have students, one student in the Midwest, and I even see some of my local students online because that's part of the, having the right materials, especially with older students, because I wouldn't recommend online necessarily for like a first grader, but
Yeah.
it's the materials that make all the difference. Absolutely. And I just use Zoom for my platform, just like we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long are you meeting with them?
I see my students typically 90 minutes a week. So 2 45-minute sessions.
Okay, cool. So
Mhm.
it's you're more reinforcement.
Yeah, I would be considered reading intervention. Right, right. The materials that we make though, that's for any student. It's not just intervention. It's both.
Gotcha.
I mean, I definitely have interventionists that buy our materials, but a lot of just general education. And I do and I do know there's some homeschool people that have been interested. And because I have a personal passion for homeschool and I'm trying to make these materials so user friendly, that's why we're like, well, let's really, we want to let the homeschool families know about our materials as well, because they're so helpful for any category of student. So yeah.
Nice. And the materials that you have, is it more curriculum like lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, like it needs to go into order, or is it just, hey, whatever concept it is that you're trying to learn?
It could be either. So it's
Okay.
our main material is called the Latin progression, and
Okay.
it will eventually be about 55 of those common Latins. I do recommend the progression. They all come in a sequence, but it's not some teachers just buy certain ones. They're sets of 5. So some
Okay.
teachers want more of the, maybe, I don't like to say more challenging morphemes, but some of those base elements that have more than one form, or some of those suffixes. So some teachers do purchase them, just whatever ones they want, but it does come in a progression, and it's called we call it a supplemental piece for ELA curriculum, as a part of ELA curriculum. And it definitely is, it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, it's, people ask me, well, how long does it take? It depends. It depends on the morpheme. Some of them are more transparent than others, or easier to spell than others. So I say, including the activities, it would average about an hour a morpheme, but it totally depends on the student. You could do the core lesson in 10 to 15 minutes, though. That's the teacher-led part. It's about 10 to 15 minutes, I would say.
Okay.
And the
And then
activities really depend on the student. So yeah.
awesome. Nice. Do you do one-on-one?
This year I'm all one-on-one. I've done
Okay.
as much as 6-on-1. My largest reading groups have been 6 students. And that was in person. Online, my largest reading group was 3 students.
Okay.
So yeah, so it works. Groups are kind of fun, because then the students can kind of do some of the activities together. And the next thing we want to do is add games to our site, because there's so many games you can make with these.
Yeah.
I have them in person. I just haven't made them, available.
Digital, yeah.
We just haven't had time. So
I understand. But you say you have video support also.
yeah, we're just starting. We have four demo videos up. And then we also just added some on our website. We added several more explanatory videos showing more of the activities, kind of explaining more of the activities. We just really wanted people to know really, what this is. And we love feedback. So like if anyone looks at our website and is confused, we would love to hear from them, because we're trying to make it really clear. And we also have a vocabulary product called Word Families, and that's more just to add to your vocabulary work. But our main thing is called the Latin progression, because it's that layer of language that we that's how we organized it. It's our
Yeah.
common Latin morphemes that are in English. So yeah.
Nice. Where do we find your website?
It's all on the website. Yeah. So if it's just themorphologykit.com.
Okay, the morphologykit.com. And the links will be available in the description, of course. Before I let you go, 3 things that you would tell parents as far as I guess combating dyslexia, because that is it seems like it's being identified more and more now. What's 3 things you would tell parents in regards to helping their reader?
Oh, okay. I definitely feel that there's an important piece to getting an actual diagnosis, because when your student goes, if your student ends up going to high school or college, the accommodations available are really, really important, and they're there to support your student. So for instance, listening to books, that is cognitively the same as reading them. So we do not want a student to ever feel like that is, cheating or something like that. We really want to make those audio resources available to students, as well as the speech, the speech to text programs and that sort of resource. And I also feel just at home, like when my daughter was young, she did have dysgraphia, and which is related. Lots of students with dyslexia, that's the written side of English, is go ahead and offer some of those scaffolds to your student, where maybe you're doing the handwriting, your student's dictating to you, because we really want. What happens is, if we're expecting our student to write everything, and either they have poor handwriting or they're not good at spelling, they kind of tend to like dumb down their language, because they don't want to write the word fabulous. Instead, they use
right.
right. So definitely we want that beautiful oral language to come out, even if we're helping them. So let's still do that, because they, most of the students, they have wonderful oral language, vocabulary. We want them to be able to use that in their writing. And then the other thing I think for parents is there's a lot of resources out there that are fantastic to read, that will just help you work with your child. Like, I wish that, even though I'd already been trained by the time I homeschooled my daughter, there are resources now that I didn't realize exist. Like, there's a wonderful book called Beneath the Surface of Words. And it talks about the structure of our language. And there are some great different Facebook groups and that sort of thing. So get support. Those were not around when my daughter was young, or if they were, I wasn't aware of them. So really join some reputable groups. Check out the IDA, the International Dyslexia Association. Check out their resources. Like just today, there's a Spell Links free session for parents on spelling. There's so many great things out there. So I would say those would be the 3 pieces of advice that I would have
awesome.
for someone who's still, homeschooling their child.
Yes. Do you have anything else to add on in regards to what you offer?
Oh, well, just thank you so much for the time to share this. We're really just, wanting to get the information out there for an easy to use, affordable resource for parents. So I really appreciate this opportunity. And we're also easy to reach if a parent ever is like, oh, I'm not so sure about this. Our information's all on the website for contacting us. And we're happy to chat, and, or, if there's something they can't find, like the videos, we're happy to help with that. So.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you working to ensure that our kids can read.
Thank you.
Like, that's the thing. So
thank you. Well, I'm excited to learn more about your organization. I wish that was around when my daughter was young.
Oh, thank you. So, yes. The support is necessary, and that's why reading, I feel like it's the most challenging skill that a parent has to teach their child. But I feel like once it's taught, it's like, oh, it's such a breath of fresh air. Like, we got it. Like, I'm so happy. My
Exactly.
8-year-old, I share all the time our challenges, because I was in charge of teaching her how to read. And it was a journey. It was a journey,
Yeah,
but it was a
yeah,
slow
yeah.
journey. I took my
Well,
time. I
yeah,
took my time.
yeah. Well, good for you to take the time and find some good resources. And not all of us like didn't necessarily have phonics when we were young, right? So we don't know how to teach it. And so teachers don't even learn it in teaching
No,
hall,
and
right?
that's what yes,
I
that is
know.
a thing.
It's a
Yes.
huge, it's a huge, yeah. And that's why like, so when there is, so that's why we need each other. That's why we need these groups and yes, exactly.
Indeed. And the conversations, just being
Yes,
able to talk about it and understand that support is available. And that's why I
exactly.
always want parents to know, like, honey, if you have met, like, you had a challenge, you feel like, oh, I don't know what to do,
Yeah,
find support,
yeah,
because it's not something you have to do on your own. So definitely
yeah.
tap into Mary and her morphology,
Well,
because
thank you.
it's necessary. We want strong readers. We definitely want
Yes,
strong readers, if
yes,
nothing else.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
but
Awesome.
yes,
Thank you, Jay.
of
Yeah,
course,
really enjoyed,
parents.
really enjoyed talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Thank
So,
you, thank you. And I always remind parents before I go, homeschool your kids.